from the crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 102 of Dads from the Crypt. My name is Jason. Tonight, I'm joined by Jody.
Hello.
And returning guest, Elizabeth Kyle.
Howdy, guys.
And Jody brought along another guest. Why don't you introduce her?
Yeah, so for the first time, I have a family member on the show tonight. My daughter, Elise, is here.
Hi, Elise.
I'm Elise. I'm 13. I've been watching horror movies for quite some time. I would say my favorite is probably the original Friday the 13th.
That's my girl.
Wow.
I have a lot that I really like.
What else? What's like your top 5?
I don't know.
You were saying earlier, Final Girls?
Final Girls.
Oh,
Yeah.
so good. So good.
I like the newest Scream movie.
Yes.
We saw that
Not
one on
wrong
opening
there.
night.
Not wrong.
What
We'll
movie
talk.
has
We'll talk offline.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a project in the future.
What movie has scared you the most?
Ouija, Origin of Evil, probably.
Girl, okay.
Origin of Evil is scary,
Okay,
man.
stop it. Like, yes, I go into hard horror circles and I'm an apologist for that movie for so many reasons. But like, it actually is scary. Like,
Yeah.
I don't get scared by, like, for sure, like PG-13, like Sunday afternoon on HBO. Like, I'm just like, whatever. That movie shook me. For real. Like, nobody was in the room for me to be like, did you just, like, what has happened? Why am I scared? I'm 40 years old and this is just some dumb PG-13 horror movie, but like, it totally did get me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The
Good
other one I
taste.
remember, do you remember watching Annabelle Creation?
Oh,
Yeah, same. Was it
That scarecrow thing with the
Yes!
the
No.
black hands and
Okay, yes. Okay.
All right, and Elise, so Jody said you watched a lot of Tales from the Crypt episodes with him. Do you have a favorite Tales from the Crypt episode? Or a couple favorites?
with
the one with the graves.
Oh no, you're thinking of
Oh, that was the different one.
the Cabinet of Curiosities.
Oh, that's
I
good.
don't know.
Okay, if you think of one, let us know.
I don't remember what the most recent one was.
We watched one just the other day.
Yeah, we
I don't
did.
remember what it was.
We watch a lot of stuff.
So, Elizabeth, you're coming back to us. Last time you were on was, I think, a season 2 episode, The Thing from the Grave.
It was,
What have you been up to since then?
Oh my gosh, like 10 years worth of life, just doing the things. So I moved. I keep doing the same thing in a different location. So I work for myself now, which is like kind of the coolest.
It is.
It is, yeah. It's going really well. And I moved and I'm living in a lot more house for a lot less money because I am now in Mississippi.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So I'm good with it. I did have to make peace with it. I'm from Midtown Memphis, born and bred. And like, this is not that. And it's great. It really is. Like, I've really embraced it. I live right past a dairy farm.
Nice.
It's cool. No Uber. Like, you can't get a thing to come to you here, which has been just really new to me. But also, like, I don't spend as much money. And I have to think harder about bad decisions, kind of all the way around, in a way that I think has benefited me. So, country life, I endorse it.
What have you been doing in the horror realm?
Yes. Watching all the things, happen on BGH sometimes and Zombie Girls sometimes. Kira Score, Rachel and I from Zombie Girls are working on getting a project off the ground that has been in the making now for a year and a half because we love each other so much. We just absolutely have to, even if nothing's happening, meet and sit and talk about the things, and it absolutely is going to happen, and I'm really excited. So look out for that.
Does it have a name, a landing page?
I should know better than what I'm about to tell you, but if you do search Hear Us Gore on YouTube, you'll get there.
Sorry, it's Hear Us Gore?
It is, yes. Sorry.
Okay.
I like
It
that
is
name.
a play on I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar.
Okay. I got it now.
I like it.
Excellent.
There's not.
All right. Well, we're doing things a little bit differently tonight. We're going to be talking about the horror anthology movie Campfire Tales from 1997. But we're doing things again. It's a little bit of a different movie. We're doing things a little bit different order. So first off, we're going to talk about Fright Rags, which we're huge fans of, and they, by the time this comes out, will have just released their Sleepaway Camp collection for the 40th anniversary. Recording on the Sunday before the collection comes out, so we don't actually know exactly what's in. We've seen the preview pictures.
The preview pictures look awesome, by the way.
Pictures look awesome. Just
great.
They got
Angela shirt.
pins.
Yeah.
Badges, I think. Yeah, all kinds of cool stuff.
They've got a little enamel pin, like the original Sleepaway Camp VHS box with the shoe and the knife, except for the shoe slides.
So
like you can slide the shoe
so
up and down.
cool.
Oh, that's so cool. That's
So,
super cool.
in honor of that, we're doing another giveaway. If you're on our Patreon, you're going to be automatically entered. And if you join our Patreon between now and when the contest ends on August the 4th, you'll be automatically entered. And also to be entered, we're looking for iTunes reviews. So if you give us an iTunes review and take a screenshot when you submit it and send it to dadsfromthecrypt@gmail.com, you'll be automatically entered into the contest. So again, take a screenshot of your iTunes review, send it to us, and you'll be entered in a chance to win a $25 $25 Fright Rags gift card. And when you go to make your payments, you can use code DADSCrypt10, all lowercase, all together, no spaces, DADSCrypt10 for 10% discount. And even if you don't get the gift card, if you want an extra discount and or show some support for the show, you can use that code as well, because who wouldn't want to buy Sleepaway Camp apparel, items, accessories?
It's really like you're getting a
I'm cool.
I don't know, $27, $28.
That's a really
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
With that discount code.
So again, because we're doing things a little bit differently, and actually I closed my page. Oh, there it is. So again, on our Patreon, we do fun little polls that we review on the show. So if you join our Patreon, you can be part of that as well and give us your opinions. And I am actually on the wrong Patreon page. I'm on my personal one. So I'm just going to keep talking while I log in and log back out. But what we did was that we polled people to ask what their favorite summer camp series is. So I'll have that in just a second as it's loading.
That might be my favorite setting for horror.
It is mine too.
I mean, really, I'm never tired of it.
I don't know what it is about. I didn't go to summer camp that much, but
that's why, Jody. That's why I never went, and it became this thing in my mind that I was just like, I guess it's on it. I don't know. People die.
Maybe it started
amazing.
with what was that? Salute your shorts. Maybe that's what got me into it.
100%.
I have a Camp on a t-shirt right now.
I would give anything for that. That's amazing.
So I actually did
donkey
go,
lips. I haven't done that in ages.
I didn't go to sleepaway camp much as a kid, but I went as a counselor. I worked at a lot of summer camps because I thought the funnest part of summer camp was the shenanigans after the kids went to bed.
Oh yeah,
that was by far the best part of summer camp.
Well, that's where all the movies happen.
Right. Well, that's what's funny to me. Again, we're gonna get into this in a second. But most of the Friday 13th movies don't take place at a summer camp, but they don't take place during summer camp, and that's what frustrates me. About
which one is it? Which one is it?
6,
yeah.
Which is also my favorite one because
it is a good
actual
one,
kids that takes place during a camp.
I like that part of it, but it's not my favorite because
it isn't my favorite either.
It's the goofy one. I like the more serious one.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the poll. I just came up with the top 6 that I could think of off the top of my head, and of course we'll just put the entire Friday 13th series just to lump it all together. Because I'm not gonna list out every single movie in that series. So The Burning, Sleepaway Camp, again the series, and I'm surprised never got a Burning sequel, but that's not here nor there.
I wish.
And again, I put down The Final Girls, one of Elise's favorites. That takes place at a summer camp. You Might Be the Killer, which is actually a relatively recent but really fun movie. I like that, with Allison Hannigan and Franz Kranz.
Yeah.
And then I put Fear Street Part 2, 1978.
The best of the Fear Street.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so good. Yeah, so good.
So just to give our Patreons a shout out, We got 33% for Friday the 13th, 17% for The Burning, and a whopping 50% for Sleepaway Camp.
I do love Sleepaway Camp.
That's good. I mean, it's yeah.
Of
I will say-
all those, I would say The Burning has great moments. Overall, I don't think it's a great movie.
Oh, I love The Burning.
Oh, I
think it's
love
great.
The
Really?
Burning.
It's just, there's some really boring parts, sequences in that. And that
Here's
that
my
guy,
here's my issue with Sleepaway Camp
Mhm.
is often people who are like wearing the pen and being like Sleepaway Camp, I love. Like I'm like that. No, I rented Sleepaway Camp 100 times from Blockbuster because I couldn't
Mhm.
believe a person allowed it to exist, and
Yeah.
then my mom let me rent it. So I would show freaking. It was my cocktail party trick when I was like 11 to be like, wait, you just wait, yeah,
Wait,
you've
so
seen
what year
horror
was
movies.
this? What year
I
did you
was
start
probably
watching Sleepaway Camp?
fifth grade, sixth grade,
Wow. And that,
Yeah.
so again, what year? That was you're
95,
40,
96.
okay. Because that was right around the time
So,
I was in high school. It must have been 97, 98
yeah.
when I
So
first
the trick
saw
for
it.
me was I had to find covers, VHS covers
Mhm. Oh,
that
it's
were
best cover.
innocuous enough that like
Oh.
it could be a thriller. It could be, I could not get like anything where it was like very salacious or incredibly
Mhm.
gory on the cover. Like I was like so tantalized and would just like, if only, and then have to walk over to like April Fool's Day with a freaking noose in your
Mhm.
braid, which actually is a total favorite of mine now. And like,
Hold on.
love.
Hold on. A noose, no. A knife through a shoe, yes.
Well, no, a noose in the braid. My mom's not paying that much attention. She's looking for the most like recent Kevin Costner. Like she's like on board at Blockbuster
Mhm.
being like, right, but can you check the whatever? And no, it just had to slip in just benign enough to be like, it's not neon. It couldn't be like
No Night of
No.
the Demons or
none
anything
of
like
that.
that.
No, any of the ones that I was like, do I like ladies? I don't know. This zombie one with the piercings might be intriguing. Nope, can't do
Return
that.
of the Living Dead
No,
three.
you can't get
Yeah.
that. You can't do that. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like I got all the fringe, all the horror adjacent, and then could just like kind of slide like Sleepaway Camp into, or I don't know, like Pet Cemetery. I'd have to like literally see a catalog. I knew where they were. Like I could draw
Yeah.
you a mental map of like where I could go, and I did re-rent over and over. Campfire Tales looked like a Sweet Valley High
Yeah.
Mhm.
like book cover, right? Like we're in B. Dalton's, and this is just like, don't worry, mom, it's fine. And then meanwhile, it starts, and I'm like, oh, this is going in the same folder mentally as Sleepaway Camp when just girls are like, whose house are we sleeping at this weekend? I'll be like, mine. Okay, I got something to show you because it's kind of funny. Like it's a little like there's some.
At least
It doesn't
Mhm.
hold back a ton. Sleepaway Camp,
Yeah,
or not
well-
Sleepaway Camp, but the Campfire Tales.
Yeah.
There's a
at least,
little.
have you seen Sleepaway Camp?
I have not seen Sleepaway
Okay.
Camp.
We haven't done that one yet.
It's
Yeah.
something.
So
At least, do you have
are-
a favorite? Do you have a favorite of those? Which one would you vote for?
Probably Friday the 13th.
Jody?
I mean, out of those six, I mean, it's got to be Jason for me. He's my first horror love. But talking about Sleepaway Camp, have you seen the sequels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I love Sleepaway Camp 2. Sleepaway Camp
I'm
2
fine
was
with that
like
kind
a
of.
top
all of it,
movie.
yeah.
Like it has the highest body count of any movie. Like I actually like counted. I think there's like 20. Like she takes out everyone in the
Yeah.
entire camp. It's incredible.
That's good.
And it's just silly enough. Yeah, I love summer camp movies. Madman,
They're the
that one's
best, yeah.
fun.
So, Elizabeth, which of those do you vote for? Which is your bag?
Oh, Friday the 13th.
Oh, okay. Wow. So I'm the only Sleepaway Camp purist here.
I
But
mean, it's great. It's great.
yeah, the first one is it's we'll get into it a little bit. It hit me at the right time that just like changed my brain chemistry.
I was probably in college before I saw it, so that's probably part of it too.
Probably, yeah.
And I like the second one, but the first one is just it's just so bizarre. There's so many bizarre choices.
Yeah, there's something just
But-
priceless about how, yeah.
So we
So
actually
weird.
went to this vintage clothing and horror store called 1984 in Ventura, and saw it. They like had a projector and they projected. It's like 10 people there, I love watching it with a crowd, but the thing that always strikes me with that movie is there's so many bizarre choices, but they're so confident in their choices,
Yes.
and it's the filmmaking is actually good around those bizarre choices. So like there's good editing, there's a good score, the acting is really over the top, but something about the confidence of making those weird choices, it's just ties it all together. Like if you're gonna be weird,
when I saw The Room, I was like, I feel like I've seen those somewhere.
Yeah.
Like,
when you were saying something about going to like a horror like clothing and stuff, I was hoping you were saying you got some of the shorts from Sleepaway Camp. Like,
oh well, no,
everyone
I have
should
those.
have some of those shorts. I'm just saying.
All right. But moving on, tonight we're talking about the movie Campfire Tales. Elizabeth, this was your choice, and I've never heard of this before. So I want you to tell me. I want you to tell me about this movie. What is, without giving away the plot, because we're going to get into all of that.
Yeah.
How did you find this movie? How does film make you feel?
So this movie, very much reflected the color palette of a Lisa Frank Trapper Keeper. So I could slip it in very innocuously to my mom's Blockbuster stack and it not be like a thing. And I didn't realize at the time, but it's like Amy Smart and like Ron Livingston, like all these people that I'm like, okay, you're just in this, like, what is this movie in this title card? It's all like so budget. But it like totally hit this just like weird sweet spot for me of like, I was always obsessed with urban legends. I found that we had a very tiny section in my library, my public library, about like, that were like, it's like urban legends. So in every movie where people are like looking up furiously, like, oh, it's the gang high beam initiation, and they have the huge book. That is not, no. They have one book. It has half of a paperback cover, and it's called like, it's like Joe Schmo's like, so you think you know urban legends? No, it's not cool at all. But like I would check those out constantly, and like there was this one like oversized kind of graphic novel. I still look for this on eBay and Amazon and can never find it, but urban legends very early on was a thing for me. And this movie obviously like from go is like, here's what we're here for, and like I was here for it. And then it was just kind of wacky and weird and unique and sort of every layer, like the execution, the casting, like it was like 20 very talented people never met one another, and then we're like, here are the choices we make, and like the result is not bad. Like it's not like I need it out of my mouth, it tastes bad. It's just weird in this way that like I return to a lot, again, because it was very accessible, and Blockbuster, I was the only person running it, so it was just there. But like, I don't know, I just kind of grew to love this weird movie that then you couldn't find anywhere, because there was like a 10-year period that I was like, what about that movie? I'm gonna show that movie at like my house, whatever. And no, you aren't, unless you're gonna buy some weird Norwegian Blu-ray. I don't even know.
Yeah,
Like you
I
couldn't
looked it
find
up.
it.
I looked it up on eBay. It's out of print. They did do it. I was surprised. I'm surprised they even did a DVD of this, to be honest.
They do have a
DVD is going for like $45 is the going price.
See, I'm not alone.
This was a movie that I hadn't heard of until Elizabeth brought it up. It's
really?
few years ago, and I scoured the internet trying to find.
You sure did. Yeah, no, I was wildly impressed when you were like, and here it is. Like, really? Because like I've looked. I feel like I'm like on some email alerts and shit about this movie, because like you have those weird false memories where I'm like, was it that movie that like people look hands to, and like all these like just things that imprinted on my brain that like, yeah, it was, because I saw it like 800 times, but like then you're 35 plus and you're like, I don't know, was that movie? And like I just couldn't find it, and it's just been a blast to have a reason to frequently revisit since I've met Jody.
So how old were you when you first saw it?
I remember it being new on the shelf. So what was it? 97? Was that?
Yeah.
So yeah.
The distribution of this movie is very confusing as well, because I don't think it came out in America until like 98.
Who even knows? Like whenever it landed on the Blockbuster shelf in Midtown Memphis on Union, I was all fucking over it, because like it's pink, it's like I mean legit, I was like salivating, like, oh my gosh, I can just, I don't even have to talk about it. It's not even like, is a witch board? Dr. Giggles. Like, doesn't sound friendly. No, this is like Campfire Tales. And like, it could be like a unicorn may as well be on the cover of this. Like, it should glitter. It's very
That's
pretty.
innocent, right? Like
Very pretty,
Campfire
yeah.
Tales. That's not
Right.
gonna
And
Yeah.
it could be exactly. It could be a Mary Kate and Ashley adventure. Who even knows? My mom's not concerned. Again, she's like hot on the trail of Waterworld or whatever, and trying to like get the Friday night, like whatever. So I'm just like, the less we have to talk about it, the better. Here we go. This is not a freaking like Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I'm not like, because there would be those Fridays that I'm like, I will die on this hill. I will just be 10 and die. And be like, if I can't watch whatever the movie I'm like gonna die for, then I'm good. You can just leave me here at Blockbuster for the rest of my life. But this, I just freely, it would be like my like one, like I would throw it on the pile basically anytime. And then it really quickly went to the like whatever that shelf that was like the 99 cent, like just add it. It's fine, whatever. So like every time, and I'd be very surprised if it was gone because we had one copy. And sometimes it was. I'd be like, who are you? Where are you? This person.
Who is the other person?
I feel like there's a 2-person dating site about what people in the world have seen this. Yeah, it's just nostalgic and stuck, and yeah.
All right, well, let's get into it. Jody, you're gonna walk us through all the mini segments kind of smashed into this, because there's a lot.
Are we going all at once, or are we doing like
No, let's do it bit by bit.
Okay. So we open on like the most familiar campfire story, urban legend, the one I remember hearing as a kid, of the hook. There's a couple in a car. They're sitting there at the lover's lane kind of thing, and they're starting to make out a little bit, and then they hear that there's a madman in the area with a hook for a hand, and the girl gets nervous. She gets him to go back home, to the
hop
drive-in, Sonic, like the whatever.
This is taking place in like the 50s.
It's in the 50s, but it's the drive-in restaurant place, and so they drive up, and he goes to order a milkshake, and when he comes back to the car, the hook is hanging on the door. That was one of those stories. It's super familiar, right? But awesome. When I was a kid, that story freaked me out. Like,
I mean, yes.
What was the scariest book as a kid for us at our age? All of us, it was scary stories to tell in the dark.
Oh God, yeah.
That was by far the most terrifying book, and it was in every library.
Yeah.
And like, I mean,
it was in my Catholic school library, and then I got in trouble for having it in class, and I was like, "You guys gave it to me."
I
mean, funny. Harold, my friend told me Harold while we were like on a camping trip, and it freaked me out for a very long time.
That Susanna, the one where there's a lady in the rocking chair with her head in her lap or whatever. Like I for real sometimes would just be like, y'all aren't ready for it. Like because people would be like, bring it to sleepovers or whatever. Because I was always the one with the contraband, be it like whatever. Like, yes.
So real talk, as a 41-year-old man, last night when I was preparing for this episode, I was like, let me look up
I do it sometimes
scary stories.
It's still scary. It's still fun. It's still
just the pictures in this freaking book.
It's not okay.
It's haunting.
1 o'clock in the morning.
Not
41
okay.
years old, looking at this book, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this.
It's not
right
okay.
now. I need sunlight before I can look at this book.
No, it touches something like deep in your core. But also, I went once and was like, I'm gonna find this at our library, at the Collierville Library, whatever, like in the suburb I'm in now. And they're like, oh, here you go. And I'm like, this isn't what? Like, what is this? And so I go home. Not that I'm gonna read it to my 4-year-old, but like, just sometimes I'll just like kind of leave books around my room that I'm like, does it scare her? Or is she like, what's this? Just so I can gauge, like, see where we're at. And when I got home with them, I was like, what is this, like, Dagwood, like, Kathy? There was just, like, bizarre illustrations. And I was like, yeah, the cover, nothing about this looks familiar. And it was illustrated by someone new. It was, like, their reissue because they had to pull. And it was, like, part of banned books and stuff about, like, they decided the illustrations were scarier than the stories. So, like, they were trying to divorce the literature from the illustrations, and it was not good, guys. It was. You can
get the original again.
You can, as of kind of recently, yeah.
I've got the 3-pack with all of them in there, so you can have these.
Oh, don't.
Friggin'
that's the one. Stop it. That is
Jody,
the one. Don't get
us copyrighted.
That's the one my little brother tore
out of.
No, it's not.
But
tore out of my book and used to sit on my wake me. tickle my nose and be like, here in your face. And I'm
I think
dead.
the fact that we're talking about the greater myth and not so much about the segment
Right.
says a little something. I'm going to tie this a lot more together when we get towards the end of this.
Well, yeah, I mean, this segment's, it's simple, it's short, like it doesn't have a ton of impact.
Well, I feel like it's
It just
kind of
sets the scene, you know.
true, like
Yeah, but doesn't tie in, and we'll talk more about how everything ties in together, but doesn't really tie in so much. But well, again, we'll talk about that in a moment. But first of all, Elizabeth did a little bit of so the woman in this segment is played by Amy Smart. So Elizabeth did a little Amy Smart cosplay for all of us. If you're listening to this, go on YouTube and you can see her wonderful cosplay skills. So Elizabeth Smart, I loved her work, but like in the early 2000s, she did some great stuff.
Yeah.
She was one of her earliest roles was as like a lieutenant, like kind of a one little walk on in Starship Troopers. She was in Varsity Blues, which again was another big movie when I was in high school. She was in Road Trip, was again another movie I watched a lot when I was in college.
That might be the one of hers I've seen the most.
Yeah,
like that scene on the bus and the guy tries to smell her feet. Ugh. I always remember that. She was also in The Butterfly Effect. And she was
pretty
in
decent movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
I love that movie, and I feel like the movie gets a lot of hate.
Yeah. I liked it when I watched it.
It was fine. I liked it.
And another series I really love is the Crank movies. Like for that like crazy mid 2000s really over the top action movies.
I'm kind of with you.
I love the second one especially. It goes so over the top.
That's the one I was at a drive-in and I was seeing some really slow underwater horror. I don't know what it was. It wasn't sharks. It was like boring me. And on the screen to our right was Crank, like the sequel. And I was just like, okay, we're underwater. And what is that?
Yeah.
What is happening? Like, I can't look away from that. Like, can we just go over there? Because like, I need to see how this plays out.
Yeah, those movies are really fun.
It was wild. Yeah.
And then she's in the new DC TV series Stargirl. And then, of course, the gentleman in the car, Eddie, is played by James Marsden from X-Men and Superman Returns, Enchanted, 27 Dresses, and more recently, Westworld. And also, I feel like he kind of gets a bad rap a little bit too. He's kind of they kind of cast him as kind of like
he's
they cast him as like the himbo type.
Yeah.
But I feel like he definitely would have more range if given the chance when he has his moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie, watching this movie is like a who's who of like 90s stars.
It's a time
you
capsule.
get to see so many people.
And we skipped over the directors. We'll do that at the end, just because we're flipping everything around. Okay. So, but yeah, good basic segment. My complaint is that how does it tie in with the rest? And again, we'll talk more about that.
It's an anthology. Didn't bother me.
Well, but there is a wraparound. That's why I understand. Okay. I'm gonna put a pin in that.
That's true.
Okay. So Jody,
I think they tried to be too clever. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
But I think they just tried to be a little too clever at the end.
Okay, Jody, next.
So anyway, wraparound. You've got these four people. There's a dude named Cliff with his girlfriend Lauren, and Lauren's little brother Eric, and their friend Alex. And they're driving home for a concert, and Cliff is drunk and driving all over the road. And everyone's telling him to stop, but then they crash. And they all get out of the car and they start it's 1997, like we didn't all have cell phones and stuff, so they don't really have a good way to get a hold of anybody. They put out some flares and then they go and find this abandoned church, I guess, like it's a foundation of a building, make a little campfire, and they start telling stories. Pretty simple setup here, because this is our next three segments. It's going to be the stories they tell.
And just to go over again the characters in this, so we have Eric. I think he was the one that was driving.
Yeah,
he's played by Christopher Masterson, the younger brother of Danny Masterson. So not the same guy, because I saw that name, I was like, he was in Cutthroat Island, American History X, and Scary Movie 2. The other gentleman is Jay Ferguson. He's playing Cliff.
He's a little guy.
Yeah,
there's one guy who seems really little for some reason.
Right, he's little, but I think he's got big because he was in Higher Learning in the 90s. But recently he was on The Conners. He was also on Mad Men as Peggy's boyfriend. Or I can't remember if they get engaged or not at the end.
That is where I now retroactively remember him from.
Beardy guy, which I kind of love. And then we have the two women that are with them. Alex is played by Kim Murphy. She was in City of Angels, The In Crowd, and Level 9. And then we have Christine Taylor, who plays Lauren, who is
Melody from Hey Dude.
yeah, she was
That's where I knew her from at the same
Hey
time.
Dude. She was in Night of the Demons 2.
Yes,
She
she
was
was.
in
One of my
the
favorites.
Brady Bunch movie, the very big
Yes.
sequel. She was in The Craft. And then she was in The Wedding Singer, Zoolander, Dodgeball, a
All
ton
the
of
Ben Stiller
comedies.
movies
All
for a
the Ben
while.
Stiller.
Because
Yeah.
she eventually married Ben Stiller.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so it's really crazy to see her this young in this movie. So that is our wraparound crew. So Jody, give us the next one.
Okay. I will say it doesn't feel right for me just to describe these. Hang on just a second. Let me do something real quick.
Podcasting. Oh,
Yeah.
Jody's changing the mood lighting for those watching, for those listening on the podcast.
Yeah, if you're not watching the video on this, you're missing out because I now have a flashlight held up under my chin because you can't tell these stories, just sitting in a bright room with a microphone. And my flashlight did come on. I had to borrow like one of these big D battery flashlights from my parents because we don't have one around my house.
Yeah. Boy.
All right. So I'm going to try to tell this story. Rick and Valerie are on their honeymoon and driving through Nevada. And they take a detour to visit some caverns, specifically some caverns where there, like the Donner Party, some people went crazy and had to eat each other. And while they're there, they're disturbed by a local man who, when he first shows up, I don't know if it's the lighting or whatever, but he looks like a Neanderthal. Like when I first saw him, I was like, is that a caveman? But no, it's just some weird lighting. He's got a big eyebrow ridge. And he says, you can't stay here. You need to get out of this park. They hunt at night. And so they drive off like, I don't know, 50 feet. Like it seems like they don't even try, but then they run out of gas because he has siphoned their gas. And so that guy who they met gets attacked by some creature. We don't see what it is, and he is killed, and there's blood everywhere. And then Rick and Valerie are in the RV. She sprains her ankle, and then Rick leaves to walk to a gas station, even though he had just filled up the tank before. On the way, he comes across the truck. He finds the body of that guy, and this thing, whatever it is, grabs him and chokes him. And when it chokes him, it kind of crushes his vocal cords, so he can't make much noise. And he starts running back to the van. Meanwhile, Valerie's back there singing 50s songs because I think they were probably easier to get the rights to. You know how kids in the 90s love the 50s.
On her Discman.
On her Discman. And she runs. She's in there and she gets attacked by something. They're supposed to have this knock like this, which is the most uncreative, like secret knock. Like, make sure you know it's me. I'm going to knock like knock, knock,
Like
knock.
normal.
Yeah,
It's
normal knock.
really, really bad. But she knows it's not him, and this creature's there. He's like smashing through windows and through the sunroof, and she stabs him. And anyway, she eventually falls asleep. The next morning, she wakes up, and there's a policeman there. And she hears this creak sound, and she's not really sure what it is. And the policeman's talking to her, and he says, come on out of the car. Are you okay? She's asking where her husband is. And the whole time there's like scraping, creak sound. And the policeman says, come out of the car, look straight ahead. Don't look back. But she does look back. And there is Rick hanging from a tree by his feet, his body just like ripped apart, and his hand hanging down with his new wedding ring scraping the top of the vehicle. Okay, so that's definitely a story I remember hearing as a kid.
It's an urban legend.
Yeah.
That's like one of the top, like, here's an urban legend. You've heard urban legends.
That's
Where it's
like,
usually
I
on
don't,
prom. It's usually
Yeah.
a prom night thing.
it's not all the details are the same, but
No,
definitely
but it's
the
very like
scraping
once they
ring.
were starting to like bring it on home, I was like,
Yeah.
oh yes,
The
this
scraping
one.
So-
ring.
Elise,
Full
what did you think of
chestnut.
this?
I really liked that segment. It was probably my second favorite segment. I don't know. It was really good.
All right.
Yeah, it's It's one of those, I wasn't sure what was going on for a little while. But once the scraping started, that's when I realized what story we were actually telling, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, and my son figured something out that I've seen this movie several times and I never put it together. It's because I thought it was like a Bigfoot or something like that. That was
I
attacking them.
totally thought that too. And that makes me tune out a little bit. The like, that was the one story in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the like Wendigo. Like there was something where it was like,
Wendigo.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
fine. I'm
Yeah,
good.
but my son pointed out they were going to a place where there was cannibalism all these years ago.
That's
think
interesting.
these are
That
wild.
actually is interesting.
Yeah, I think they're wild mountain people.
Okay. That makes me
Well,
like, I'm all in.
Less
I guess.
Bigfooty and more wild people.
Slide
See,
it into that
that's-
subgenre. I'm
Yeah.
there.
This is my issue with this segment is we never know what was attacking them.
Yeah.
Like I could use like just give me a one shot. Was it a man? Is it the beast?
Yeah, my thing is though, like for this type of story, I don't like the vagaries of it are kind of part of these things. You know, it's a friend of a friend of a friend told you this story around the campfire.
That's a good
And
point.
so
Yeah.
Don't know the I mean, like every story in Scary Stories Tell in the Dark is like 2 pages long. Every single one of them.
Sure.
The ones that haunted my dreams for 15 years, it's like 2 pages of text.
Yeah, I'm not saying I needed the whole backstory. I just need to know what was the danger. And to me, it just felt like low budget filmmaking. Like we're never going to show you anything. Like not even like a claw or like a furry arm or something. Like I need something.
I
To
was
show
fine
me
without it.
what level of danger we were working on.
I mean,
for a minute,
I think
for a
the
minute,
guy getting ripped up was enough to give me my, stakes.
Well, I think for me, for a moment, I thought it was the husband trying to get into the car and she was stabbing her husband. I thought that was gonna be the twist.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just so I don't know the lack of any like I get what they were trying to get to the end, but just the way they got there felt really kind of cheap to me without because again we didn't
I feel like it was
know.
unnecessary. Like they definitely could have like not done that first segment with Amy Smart and James Marsden and just sort of like rolled that into this and made it a little like simplified.
Yeah.
Well, and going back to the original stories, like I had heard, like as I remember as a kid, hearing some version of the Hook story, or instead of them driving off, he goes out to investigate.
Yes.
And she hears the scraping, and it's the
Yes.
ring.
Well,
It's the
so
same
I was about to
story.
say, in my encyclopedia of urban legends, there's like a sub footnote that's like times you will just hear them entwined as one, where it's like the hook and the what is that one called? I don't even know.
Scraping or
Scraping
whatever.
or something. Yeah.
So I think they tried to separate those two, and I think
but it wasn't really necessary. I feel like they could have just like pretty
I agree.
effectively.
I would have liked it much better if they had done that.
I'm going to go ahead and give one criticism that I think applies across the board for this movie. I think every segment needed a little bit, like it's only 95 minutes long. It's a short movie, but it should have been a little shorter. Like every segment needed like 5 minutes cut out of it.
Every time. It's like I feel like you're listening to a song you forgot there was a bridge to. And like I get to, I'm like, oh.
Like
there's some stuff to do. I do
there's
like
some
this movie,
draggy
like,
part in every one of them.
Yes.
And it's usually
of them,
talking.
all of them.
It's
Where,
usually
like, it just
talking, a little
behooves you
dialogue.
for it to be tight and short.
Yes.
So like why there would ever even be the quandary of like keep it or no, don't. Just cut it and go.
In this segment, they have 2 love scenes.
That's just what I mean.
Yeah.
Like
Like,
there are
why?
gratuitous expenditures that you are seeing where it's like
I mean, I love Ron
I don't
Livingston
know.
as much as anyone else, but
yeah.
I do too, but I always had a crush on him, and I think this is the first thing I saw him in, and it's not because of this. This is not his finest look.
Let's do that rundown. So Ron Livingston, he was in Swingers, Office Space. He had a big arc in Sex of the City. Then he was in The Conjuring and Boardwalk Empire. And then he was recently in The New Flash, which I saw the other night, and it's terrible.
I haven't done that.
So bad. And then his wife Valerie is played by Jennifer MacDonald. She isn't in much. She was in the movie called Object of My Obsession, but then she actually went to work. I don't know if it was before or after she started acting, but then she went to work in the army as a Arab linguist. So she learned Arabic languages. So interesting life.
She's someone that every time I watch this movie, I'm like, what do I know her from? And the answer is this movie.
And then the movie you're watching. And then the other gentleman that they find is played by Hawthorne James, He was in The Color Purple, the Doors movie, Amistad. He was recently in the movie about Flint and the water crisis. I'll
100%
always
the
remember.
Doors movie. That's what I know him
Yeah.
from.
I always remember him as the bus driver in Speed.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See, once you get that
Mind
connection,
blown.
you're like,
Yes.
"Yep, that's that guy."
Yes, that is forever that guy. Yeah.
But am I alone in when he first showed up thinking that there was something like
No, it felt like
some
there was
kind of
like
monster man or something?
Well, yeah,
like
they have
effects
weird
makeup on
lighting,
it.
and
Like
he
it
has,
was a very
yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like it was purposefully to be like, is he the monster? Like, what is
Yeah,
happening?
okay.
But
I
yeah,
just want to
was
make
kind
sure
of,
I wasn't alone in that
No,
because I
it
don't
was
know if
very-
it was just the lighting or what, but it's very
Whatever it was
Canadian
on
looking in this
purpose.
particular
Yeah.
movie.
I mean, yeah, the ending bit is good, but overall, I was really disappointed we never found out what the danger was in this, and that
Yeah.
just seemed really cheap to me. Okay, next segment, Jody.
Got my flashlight again.
I never got the flashlight. Okay,
You got to do this right.
this is a real
Okay.
advertiser for our YouTube channel. This whole episode.
That's right. Yeah. If you are not watching on YouTube, you're missing all these theatrics.
Mhm.
You know, Jason asked me earlier today, since Elizabeth was dressing up, if I had like a Letterman jacket. I was not a sports kid. I was a theater kid.
I thought
This
you were
is
in
theater kid. This is a
You know what?
40-year-old theater kid here.
I was thinking about maybe I thought you were in the band, and I think maybe I was thinking of Casey.
I was in chorus. No, see, I took the
I wish
theater
we'd
kid
had
route, even to
chorus.
music.
I wanted show choir. We had that for like
Oh yeah.
6 months, and I was like,
If we had had that, I'm
"Make
sure
it
it
happen. Come on, come on." No, it was like me and 3 other girls that like barely showed up, and I was just like, "Okay, guys, what?
Yeah.
Come on."
So
Glee
this-
wasn't a thing. Nobody cared.
Yeah, this is what a theater kid does at 40. You hold flashlights under your chin for a YouTube video that most people listen to only as audio. All right. But I'm having a good time. All right. Our second story is about an 11-year-old little girl named Amanda, who is on the early or mid 90s chat rooms talking to a friend named Jessica, who we
Mhm.
find out very quickly and very clearly is not a little girl.
Mm-mm.
It is an online predator. And I remember, you know,
Oh
in
my
the
God,
dawn
yeah.
of the internet, hearing all of the things about like, you never know who you're talking to. And so this is definitely playing on that. So the night before her 12th birthday, her parents are going to a parent-teacher conference. Her big sister is supposed to watch her, but her big sister talks to their dad into leaving him some extra money for food, splits the cash with her, and then she goes out. Now, I do have to say that's the big sister going out like during parent-teacher conference. What's she going out for like an hour?
Like,
Well,
what are you doing?
that's
Like, what are you doing?
That's my
She's all
issue with
dressed
this.
up.
Is
You
this
smoke 2
parent-teacher
cigarettes and play a game of pool and just like run back home? Like, what are you doing?
Is this parent-teacher conference an all-nighter? Do her parents never
Right.
come home?
They just get a hotel. It's that kind
Yeah,
of, you know.
that's the okay, we'll get into it, but that's what's baffling to me with this episode. But go ahead.
But anyway, so after her sister leaves, what's her name? Amanda is searching through the house, and you know, we see that this guy has found her. He's found her in real life. And there's some really, you know, there's some pretty decent tension scenes of her like
This one
he's
messed
looking for
me
a
up.
soccer ball in the bushes, and he's got his hand like
Mhm.
hovering like an inch from her head, like about to touch her. And then he gets into the house, and through this whole thing, she has her dog with her.
Okay, that's what I can't.
Yeah.
That's why this messed me up so much. Continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but through this whole thing, she has her dog with her, and she keeps reaching her hand down, and her dog will lick her hand. And when she gets in bed, she hears some strange sounds and like the dog whimpering. And so she puts her hand down there to reassure the dog, and the dog starts licking it. And in the movie, not in, okay, so this is one of those stories that used to really freak me out as a kid, like
Yes,
the like
me
actual
too.
story version of it.
Yes.
But in the movie, she looks up and looks in a mirror and sees that it's that dude licking
Right.
her hand.
Ooh, but in the story, it's the next day and it's
Yeah.
the dog in the shower and it's written
Yes,
on
yes.
the mirror.
Yeah, you heard the same version that I heard.
Oh yeah.
And so she looks at the mirror. The mirror says, "People can lick too," and the man's licking her hand. And so she runs. Her sister's back home by this point. They call 911, and the sister enters the room, finds the corpse of the family dog underneath the bed, and the window open.
Not cool.
No,
Well,
Kill the people.
Don't
Leave
kill
the
a
dog.
dog.
Thank
No.
you.
but also, okay, so I mentioned the story on this one. This is one of the ones that used to really freak me out when I was a kid. Because like Elizabeth said, in the original story, sometimes I hear it's a blind girl, like some versions of the story.
I had heard that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Depending on what.
Sometimes it's a
Yeah.
blind girl, but either way, it's always the same. She reaches her hand down, the dog licks the hand, that reassures
Usually
her.
insinuated she's got some level of anxiety. Like this is very much like a
Right. That's comfort for
comfort
her,
thing.
when the dog's licking her.
That's established firmly early on.
Yeah. And in some versions of the story, she starts hearing a weird dripping sound at night, and that's part of what freaks her out. And then the next morning, she wakes up and her dog has been skinned and is hanging in the shower.
Oh, I
That
forgot
dripping
about
sound
that.
is the blood dripping. And then it either says people can lick too, or like, aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights? Those are two
that's combined
stories.
That's but yeah.
That story
I've
used to
heard both,
freak me out. The idea of someone being in your house, and not just in your house, but like touching you without your knowledge.
Oh, everything about it's just
It's an upsetting story.
that
It's
one. That
upsetting
one
in this movie,
definitely
too.
did upset me. And I remember, like, that was one that, like, whenever I, when I was like in the 8th grade, be like, here, let's watch this before this one come on. I'd be like, okay,
All right. So
this is gonna
Elise,
upset you a little bit.
Yeah, we have a person closer to 11.
yeah, we have someone who's
How
almost.
did this hit you?
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
It was real gross. The whole time it was just uncomfy, and like the tension scene where his hand was like out, like almost touching her hair. Like the whole time I was like, ooh, it was just gross. I did not like it.
See, she did mention, she's like, I'm glad that the internet's a little bit different. Like, there's a lot more verified identity on the internet these days.
Yeah.
It's not quite like it was when we were teenagers,
that
where it
was
literally was, I could be
The Wild
anybody.
West.
Wild
You
West,
would,
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, you could be anybody on
I
the
was
internet.
Veronica. I had red hair. I was 5'11".
What was your old handle?
Kitty Kyle 5.
Nice.
Trying to think what mine was. I used to have one.
Mine, because I lived in an area called Beaverton, so for some reason I chose the name Beaver. Because I was like, because I went to a summer camp, that was like a national summer camp, and everyone called me the Beaver, and I was too young and naive to know what they meant. So I used that as my screen name because everyone talked about this thing called AOL. I had no clue what it was, so I went home and signed up, and yeah.
And my friend had Juno email. Like she literally had a box that was a computer, apparently, that she would have everybody come look at it, and it was in her attic. I don't understand the situation of the Red household, but it was like a museum. We'd walk up and be like, you do have a computer. And then she'd be like, sit. Would you like to email a person that doesn't have a computer or an email address? Use Juno. What is?
I remember
I would like think
my...
of boys like Brett Smith and be like, Brett Smith at cute.cbhs. Like we had no idea. There was nobody on the other end. It was literally just like throwing a bottle in the ocean with a note. Like,
well, and
it's amazing.
One of my first girlfriends had a Juno address, and she like moved off. But the thing about the Juno address is it like connected to the internet long enough to download your stuff, and then it disconnected. Like you couldn't browse or anything else.
Right. No, not at all.
And so it was only like email. Like I could email her.
That is literally
she can email me back. And so that
my friend Laura would be like, do you want to get on the internet? And people were like, yeah. And so like I'm thinking of all the things I'm gonna like, what would this even do? And she's like, here you go. And it's like, I don't know my aunt's email address. Like, that's the only person I know that has a computer. Why would I email Muncie, Indiana? Like,
just forward a chain letter,
Right?
At least, does this mean anything to you?
Oh my gosh. We're so old.
It's amazing. But yeah, this one had good. This segment had good tension, but there are too many plot things that didn't make any.
Again, they just try to do too much.
Trim it.
I feel like.
Oh, like why parent teacher conference? Just say, oh, we're going out.
They do that thing kids do where it's like too many details. Stop. Like all you need to do is be like, parents, kid, gone.
Yeah.
Go.
Oh, we're going to a conference, or we're going to visit Aunt Sally for one.
You don't even have to say why.
You really don't. Just show the parents leaving out the front door.
We're going. See you tomorrow.
Tell your story.
Yeah. Yes. And also, stranger enters house, dog doesn't bark. Like
there are some definite.
I can't have like someone walking 20 yards from my house without my dog start barking. Like
I have a very, very old dog, that she doesn't know you're near until you like touch her, and then she's like, ah.
Well, then
I didn't know people were in the house.
If that's the case, then they could have at least established that she's an old dog. Like,
Yeah, but I mean,
Right.
for this one, that's just the story. Like the story has always been the dog and the stranger and all that stuff.
or like,
That's true, that is
have the
right.
stranger have like a meatball or something. Like, I felt
Murders
this is my
it.
complaint. This is my complaint about this whole thing is that it felt like a first draft. There's a lot of little inconsistencies, and that really like takes me out. Or makes
That's
me,
funny because I feel like
annoyed.
they're just trying to make a burrito out of like they don't need like just the bits from these other stories and sort of like the DNA shared of all the urban legends. Like these are some zingers that like get in and get out. Like you don't need to flesh out anything.
Yeah.
These are just very because when I would read these in every book I could find of any
Mhm.
iteration of these stories, they may change a little, but I was never like mad about it. Like it was just like it was a paragraph and it'd be like this
Right.
happened and wasn't that messed up. And I'd just be like
Yeah.
changed forever. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to Sunday school right now to tell everybody this happened.
Yeah, if someone flashes your headlights
Yeah.
or flash their headlights,
You
there's a
die,
dude in
you're
the
dead.
back
Yeah,
seat.
that's
it.
all.
Like, yeah.
That's all you need. You don't
That's
need
enough.
to.
There's a dude in
do
the
too
back
much.
I don't need to know
That's
her name's
scary.
Jessica or she's coming home for spring break or any.
Yeah, I don't think people
none of
had
it.
names in most of these stories.
They
Even.
absolutely didn't. It would be like babysitter.
Because they were like
mom.
someone's friend. Like,
Yes.
you know, my cousin's friend did this, and you know that was enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like why?
Which is part
her
of the charm of it. Like that's
Yeah.
It's like in this, like why is it her birthday? It doesn't have anything to do with anything. Why
because they
tell us
felt
where
like
her
they
parents
needed.
are
They
going?
they
Yeah.
saw a paragraph on a white piece of paper and were like, I mean, it needs more, but it doesn't.
Yeah, they overwrote that.
So, like I said, if we could trim each of these stories, you could fit in one more. So,
You
like
could, and
that's what
maybe-
I
Exactly.
would do.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
trim out enough to put another short segment in there.
Mhm. Now, Amanda is played by Alex McKenna, who did a lot of voice work. She was in Legend of Korra, and she was also in Red Dead Redemption 2 as Sadie Adler. If you played the game,
Oh,
that's
really?
a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, my son's playing Red Dead probably right now in the other room.
Yep. So that's cool. And then Catherine, the older sisters, play Devon Odessa. The only thing she's really done was she was in Pumpkinhead,
Okay.
which is cool, but that's about
It's a
it.
great movie.
Yeah.
Right. I love him.
Yeah. Speaking of trimming things out of this segment, you know, maybe the 5-minute scene of the girl in a towel, like I could have done without that.
Yeah, that
was a
part-
really
That's
long
what I mean by like there's
to keep
there's
this
some
11-year-old in a
very,
towel.
like,
that part seemed really icky to
male
me.
gazing, like just
Yeah, we could have trimmed that out. That'd be fun.
Yeah. All right, and let's move to the last segment.
All right, man, gotta turn my light off again. Theater kid. All right. Oh,
my favorite.
these are those old style flashlights that you have to slap sometimes. Hang on. I've got an overly
There you
powerful light here. All right. In our third story. It's a really good story, I actually think.
I love it. This is my
Okay, there's a man named Scott, and he's riding his motorcycle across the country. He has no destination in mind, but he is just going. And there's a big storm starts, and he notices this farmhouse, and inside is this beautiful woman named Heather, but she can't speak. And so she communicates either through gestures or she has a little chalkboard that she writes on. And he finds out that her father is who lives with her, but he's gone. He's out being a cowboy. Literally, that's what he's doing. He's being a cowboy. And she invites him to stay the night. During the night, though, they are disturbed when her father arrives. And there's a lot of commotion downstairs. And like, you know, he's calling her names and saying, how could you do this to me? And you see blood and you see, you know, you see him out by this well throwing something down it at one point. You don't really see what it is at the time. And then the whole thing starts over again. And so there's like this time loop of him showing up, doing some murder and throwing something down the well. And you don't really know exactly what's happening, but she says there are ghosts in this house.
Well, she writes.
She writes, yeah, ghost.
And you can hear, he keeps hearing voices coming from the well.
Yeah. And so during one of these times that it's happening, he gets her and they get on his bike and ride away. And then through this whole thing, she has been wearing a green ribbon around her neck. And if you are familiar with the stories, this moment I said that, you know what's coming. they're sitting under a tree and she's sleeping, and he takes off the green ribbon, and it's got a little locket on there, and looks inside, and it's got a picture of her and a guy. And then she sits up and talks and says, what have you done? And then her head, in a surprisingly good special effect, just like falls off with like all the flesh like tearing, and it's a real nice head falling
Yeah.
off scene.
Well, it's very quick, but yeah, the effect it's because they do it so they do it very quickly. But so you understand what happens, you get the effect, but not long enough for you to realize that's 90 CGI.
Right. But yeah, no, I actually thought that my flashlight's going crazy. I thought that was a good segment. Like, like if you're in the urban legend mindset, you see her and she's got the ribbon, and you're like, oh, it's a great ribbon. I know this story. But I think I feel like
always messed me up.
This is one of those though that I think they, by either combining with some other story or whatever, like it made it interesting, like the whole ghost angle and all that stuff. I thought that was pretty well done. This one didn't have as many dull spots in it as some of the other ones did.
I agree. Elise, what did you think?
There was just a lot going on. For a little bit, I was confused, but I do like that segment. I remember hearing the like urban legend about the ribbon around the neck. I've heard that one for quite some time. I've always liked that one.
I remember we took like a family hike one time, and I looked up all these like scary stories to tell in the dark stories on my phone. And so while we're out hiking, I'm reading these stories to the kids. That's one of the ones I definitely remember reading to them.
So that's in one of Heidi's book right now. I might have a 5-year-old, and she has a book. It's in a dark room. So I had this book when I was a kid, and they've like, of course, like redone the illustrations or whatever. But that's the one story that and I just know every time I turn the page, she's like, you can skip that one.
Elise, did you know what was going to happen? Did you recognize the locket as part of that story?
I did. When I saw the locket around the neck, I assumed that's what was going to happen. I wasn't sure, but that's what I thought.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, that's. Had you heard the other stories, or was that the only one that you heard? Well, you probably heard the hook.
I heard the hook. I think that might have been the only other one.
I'm pretty sure on our family hikes, I wasn't reading about creepers licking people's hands. Like, I don't think that's one of the ones we did. Yeah,
I can't wait to tell you the one
skinning the dog. These were the kind of stories my friend Cameron used to tell me. Like, I had a friend
stolen
who would tell me
shopping
these
bag.
things.
Oh, I know. We always had that friend that was like taking it way too like, okay. That's just a bit much.
So let's see. So the man in this one, Scott, is played by Glenn Quinn. He was in Dr. Giggles. He was in a lot of Roseanne episodes, and he was in Angel. And he had actually a really big career, and unfortunately he passed away of a overdose at like age 31. So yeah, that's a really tragic one. And then the woman Heathers play Jacinda Barrett, and she was actually ironically in Urban Legends Final Cut.
Yes, I was about to say.
Which I have to put a little plug for Final Cut. It's a lot better than
I love that movie. I really like that movie.
It's a lot better than you would think. Like, Urban Legend is a good movie. I think most of us remember that, but Final Cut, I'm pretty sure was like a direct to video, like Blockbuster.
Oh, it totally was. Yeah.
But it's pretty good.
For a second, I thought you were saying it was better than the first one. I was about to slam.
No. I love the first one.
Yeah, I love that one. And Dead Meat just covered those, so I was just like kind of reacquainting myself. She was also in Ladder 49, but her kind of breakthrough was she was in MTV's Real World season 4.
Interesting.
And we'll get to some more MTV stuff in a moment, but yeah, I thought that was kind of fun. Well, it's also interesting. So she's Australian. So when they did that kind of voiceover, her accent was too thick, so they had to get another actress to do the voiceover bit. But Glenn Quinn is actually Irish, but he has a much better American accent he can do. But she doesn't have to speak, so she's okay.
Yeah. I really did. Like, I think this is probably the best segment.
Oh yeah,
it's my favorite.
I agree.
There's something about like inexplicable spooky things happening on a loop you can't stop. Like that happens sometimes in movies where I'm just like that in a weird like brainstem way gets me, like where it's not like I'm not thinking about it. It's just like freaking me out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like,
My
yeah.
only complaint is how it relates to the wraparound. And Jody, why don't you go ahead and dive us into that?
Okay, so in the end of it, they're still there, they're telling their stories, and the dude who crashed the car, Cliff,
Yeah.
he goes back to the road, sees that some emergency personnel has arrived, and goes back to talk to his friends, but none of them are there anymore. There's no fire, everything's dark. And then he looks back and he sees the paramedics, and all of them are dead, or at least
Oh, his
dying.
friends.
All of his friends and him, like they're all dead, and he's dying. Like they're shining a light in his eyes, and so there's kind of moments where it's like he's standing there, but he sees the light in his eyes. And then all of the people from the other stories happen to be the people who are there. Like
Well,
the couple from the first story is the person who they like wrecked with. And then like the mom from the second story as a paramedic, and the guy from the last story as a paramedic. I don't know how that all fits together.
Yeah.
I think it was just everyone trying to be like, wouldn't it be cool?
I think they all were just there on the same day, and somebody was like, just do this.
Right.
Wouldn't it
Yeah.
be
I think
cool
I
if
think they were
the
like
same people?
I think they're like, we don't want to pay any
It's
more
like the end of
day
Wizard of
players.
Oz. Like she's like, and you were there. You.
Yeah, I feel like they were like, we don't want to pay
Right, and
anyone any
exactly.
day players, so let's
That's
just get
right.
our crew to just act it out, and we'll make it seem like it's this cool twist.
That's
It
right.
doesn't make any sense to
Yeah,
anything.
none of that part makes sense. However, the first time I watched this, the whole thing about finding out they were all dead, I thought that was
got
pretty
me.
cool. Like
It
I
got
actually
me.
that
I remember the
surprised me.
first
I was
time being
not
like,
expecting that.
Once I saw that the paramedics were already there, I was like, oh, they're dead. They're already dead. Girls, they would have like seen them coming up. But again, another problem is because you just had a segment where someone was dead and didn't realize it or whatever. Kind
Yeah.
of spoils this twist a little
But
bit.
that's
I
the
would have.
thing that's kind of clunky about this movie is like
Yeah.
there was a path forward that was smooth and cool and awesome that they could have just like glided on into. But like
Mhm.
instead, it's just sort of this toss salad of like, well, just put that here. Like just make it like just a little bit different and not go all out on every one. And it
Or
would have been way concise. Like
use the ending of the Locket episode for him to be like,
Right.
wait, what if we were all dead?
right.
Sure.
Like to use that episode to like, slide into the ending of the wraparound.
Yeah,
With
there's
that
just
you
no
realization. Like, wouldn't it suck to
transition.
realize that everyone around you was that you and you yourself were actually dead, and then
Right.
have him look around like, oh wait, that would have been cool.
Right. Right.
It was funny when we were watching it, though. You know, sometimes you watch a movie and you do a little Mystery Science Theater 3000, make some commentary.
Mhm.
And so as soon as the crash happened, it was you, right?
Yeah.
She was like, and they all dead, and they all died
Yep.
at the end. And I'm
You're
like,
a genre fan. This is what
well,
happens.
Well, and
you
did
just sit there the whole
see-
time and you're like, and they're time traveling.
Well,
And
did you
it's
see the
this.
after credit sequence?
yeah. I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's them trying to be too clever.
Have
the
I
hook guy-
missed that every time I've watched this movie?
Right after the credits start, the hook guy drives up, basically. Like the car drives up and it's the guy with the hook.
No,
right,
no,
right, right.
I thought it was the couple, James Marsden and Amy Smart. They're like in that, they're like, is their ghost or something driving? Again, I'm sure none of this was meant to make any sense.
Yeah. I think it was just somebody
there's, like,
going like, wouldn't it be cool? And not
Like-
really thinking through it.
I was like, is that their way of tying in the opening bit? But I will say, my favorite part of the movie was that there's this cool cover of the Monster Mash that starts playing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
that is
a girl,
Yeah,
a girl
that's kinda
rock
cool.
version.
There's a couple of like needle drops and I'm like, oh, it's gonna go. I like
Yeah.
that.
But like again, in the context of the whole movie, what did that very opening thing have to? How does that fit in with anything else? It's a complete non
That's
sequitur.
just setting the mood.
I guess it's like it is sort of a
Well,
stretch
and he
for
was
anybody-
telling the story in the car, apparently.
Oh,
Like,
right.
because
That's
when
all I
they're
mean.
driving,
Like if there is somebody being like, and that's how it is. Like,
yeah,
fine.
he
Well, I
says
mean-
something like that.
I'm saying narratively to the overall
well, that's a
story.
whole different question.
So,
yeah, not
again,
at all.
why? So then why wouldn't they just slide that in as one of the
Right.
other main stories? Like, oh, I remember this couple. Hearing about this couple in the 50s. Like, I just don't understand. Like, from a writing perspective, what that. Again, this whole thing feels like a first draft, and they're like, okay.
Well, if you
fine.
No, I
if you
get
look
it.
at the writing credits for the people on this, because I did get curious, like only one of them has any kind of like past before this.
Right. So
Like
yeah,
these are all new
Well,
writers.
yeah.
Oh, speaking of, did you guys want to make a movie? We could just make a movie. It could just be about like urban legends.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's do it.
I have like
Um,
$10 in the bank.
So I mean, we got the Dash and the Crypt Patreon funding.
There we
There we
go.
go.
There we go.
We're all rich.
Rich. Yeah, so this was three directors. I didn't put down who directed what. So Jody, you can correct me if I'm or you can
Gotcha.
add in on this. But so I think the first segments or one of the
Uh-huh.
the first credited director is Matt Cooper.
Yeah,
He
he did
did-
the honeymoon one.
He did The Honeymoon. He only has 2 credits, something called Perfect Opposites and Is That a Gun in Your Pocket? Not Blue movies, by the way. The second director, Martin Kunert.
Okay, he
Um,
did the Hook and People Can Lick too.
Okay,
Did both of
so
those.
he did a movie called Renegade Force, but I love this so much. He executive produced MTV's reality show Fear.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember
I
that.
remember that.
You remember that? Yeah, it was
Yeah,
the one that was marketed as Blair Witch meets
Yeah,
Survivor
that's
with
right.
the soundtrack of Godsmack.
I was about to say Disturbed. Like, what do you? Yeah. what do
Yeah,
you
no, they
want?
had that Godsmack song Voodoo that played like over every intro. That show was really fun. I
I
miss
watched
that.
it. I watched like
Yeah.
all of them. Yeah.
It was like Fear Factor, but they would like put them
Mhm.
in like a quote
Horror
insane
movie
asylum,
scene.
and they would
Yeah.
let them film themselves.
Oh,
So
I have
the-
an entire list as long as my leg of like reality TV shows that were like horror adjacent that I'm so
Mhm.
mad don't exist anymore.
Oh,
Scream
yeah.
Queens is
Yeah,
absolutely top
Scream
of that
Queen.
list, but
But this is cool because it'd be like so and so has to stay and be locked
Yeah.
in this like dark chamber for 3 hours and film themselves. I'm like, no, I wouldn't do that. And then the third director, probably the most prominent one, he did a lot of executive production on a lot of things, and then he did some directing on some of those series. So he did a handful of episodes on Beverly Hills 90210, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He did some episodes of Dawson's Creek,
Mm.
American Dreams, American Horror Story, Hannibal, and The Watchmen.
Mhm.
That I didn't say his name. That was David Semel.
And he did the campfire segment and the locket segment.
Yeah, so that tracks.
Yeah. He's definitely the most experienced out of anybody here.
Yeah, had the biggest career of anyone.
Yeah.
Okay. So any final thoughts before we wrap up our reviews? Before we go to favorite segments?
See, for me, this is a movie that has grown on me. Like, you know, when I first watched it a couple years ago after Elizabeth had me find it, I was like, it's decent. You know, it's fine. It's a good one to throw on in the background. And I think maybe I gave it like 2.5 or 3 stars or something like that. But then weirdly enough, they showed this during Chattanooga Film Fest at one of the Red Eye screenings.
Seriously?
Really?
The Red Eyes are all like pulling up obscure movies.
That's
Like,
fun though. That's cool.
Yeah. So they showed it to that crowd. And then I watched it again. So this is my 3rd time watching it. And I'm like, you know, the more I like watch this, the more I'm finding that I kind of like a lot of this. I think it's moved up a little bit for me. Like
Love it.
I think just, you know, remembering these stories and the impact the stories themselves had, I feel like, you know, it's a pretty decent version of them.
Totally.
Is it perfect? No, not at all.
Not at all. But I remember going to see Urban Legends in the theater and just
Mhm.
like to anyone that would listen, be like, Campfire Tale. Like, I mean, it's great. This is better. It's polished. It's like elevated slightly, but like, there's this other movie.
This came out the
Just
year
come over
before
on Friday
Urban
night.
Legend.
Well, just run.
Urban
know,
Legend was the year
right.
afterwards.
That's right.
This
But like,
beat 'em
so
to it.
exactly. I'd already been very like familiarized with this, like this movie. And so then that was part of like, that was one of the first of the things where I'm like, it's the same movie get made like 8 times. I don't
Yeah.
understand, but like, it's like by
Mhm.
different people. And like, so this one has a weird place like with me, not that it's better than Urban Legends, but like I saw it first and more frequently, I think, than Urban Legends. So
Mhm.
and it got there first in my heart.
All right. Elise, do you have any final thoughts? Review
I don't know.
of the overall movie?
I don't know.
That's all right. That's okay.
It's all right.
Elise, what is your favorite segment?
The locket, definitely.
Yeah. Jody?
Yeah, no, I think the locket's definitely the best made of them. It's
Mhm.
it's the one with the least amount of filler, I think.
Mhm. Elizabeth?
Totally same locket.
Yeah. Yeah,
I always loved the green ribbon story too. That one just
Yeah.
yeah. Because you don't really see, because the other ones, again, they're very basic. Like any of us could have made on the production level what was the content of that. The Locket at least had like some production to it.
right. Yeah, there was
Yeah.
some.
But I will say, even in the other segments, like the people can lick too, there's some real creepy moments in that one.
Yeah,
But that one affected me for sure. Like that was not.
that
This
was
isn't by a landslide.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. The first one, I really don't like that first one. I'll say that.
I'm not a big fan of the first one. Either.
Yeah. It's the weakest of the three for sure.
Mhm.
But
And I think, if we know anything about horror anthologies, you need to start off with a bang.
sure.
And again, I don't know if we count the hook as the first
Right.
one.
It's
that
like 2
counts.
minutes long.
I
Like,
know.
it's
That
barely.
doesn't feel like enough to be like your banger out of the gate.
Right.
I think they probably went with the most familiar one for the first one. Like maybe that was their hook, is like, you all know this story, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
they could have done more with it. Like I think the idea of combining that one and the first story would have been great. You got your scraping thing, you got your hook thing, like all that. Like that would have been good.
Yeah, that would have streamlined it in a way that would really work.
Yeah. Okay. So that wraps up Campfire Tales. We're going to move on to the song of the day. Since Mondo's not here, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to make this kind of tie this thematically a little bit to kind of the idea of obscure fandom. I have a theory that like anything that's ever been made that's been put out to the public has at least one fan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure.
like
Yeah.
again, the way Elizabeth is an adamant fan of this movie, we just spent a lot of time talking about the negatives, but that doesn't take anything away, I'm sure, of your enjoyment. And I totally respect you for liking this very obscure thing that like no one has even really heard of.
I'll be honest, it
you're
makes me feel
championing.
really cool because it was just like super mundane to me. And then like I realized like
Right.
no one, because I was like into horror, and that's hard to like be
Mhm.
like, oh, you've not heard of this?
Right. And that's like the
No
way I
one had
felt.
heard of this.
Yeah. And that's the way like I felt about Sleepaway Camp, because
Right. Yeah.
no one had, from the time I first saw it in 97, I started making people watch it. I never met anyone else until probably like maybe last 10 years, some between 5 and 10 years, it started getting like a bit more mainstream attention, especially the more the internet's horror communities became more unified.
Used to be a lot more bespoke.
For me, it was weird sequels that I really loved than
Mhm.
finding, Sleepaway Camp 2. That's one of them. Night of the Demons 2. Like these cheap, like cable type things. And the first person I ever found that actually knew those movies like well was Eric from Bloody Good Order. Like he knows those movies too, and
that's definitely his sweet spot.
Yeah, that's my sweet spot. And I had never met anybody who actually knew those movies other than me.
It's very impressive.
I'm kind of tying. So what I'm doing is I'm tying in the song of the day with kind of our data advice that like everyone has their little niche fandom that they saw something that hit them at the right moments in the right way that kind of affected them. That it could be something really obscure. It could be the Beatles. Everyone has their thing. So again, my dad advice is to respect everyone's little thing, unless it's like something really harmful. But I always like to give that caveat because you never know what someone's into. So for music, I don't have an older sibling and I didn't have MTV. So I didn't really have much in the way of being influenced a lot. So my musical tastes were kind of, I had friends listen to stuff, but I wasn't like, I was listening to really what was on the radio. And especially at that time in the 90s, there wasn't much hip hop radio. There's like one channel and they played like Outkast, Rosa Parks, kind of like every couple minutes. It seemed like that was their main song. They played over and over again. So when I started getting to hip hop, I was kind of like very open-minded, and there wasn't the like MTV hip hop influence. So I was very much into alternative hip hop in a way. So there was a band I started listening to from Portland, because I'm from Portland, Oregon, called Quiva, that I'm sure no one has ever heard of, no one's talked about in like 20 years. And they're an instrumental hip hop group. So they had a full band, like a jazz band almost. They had a bassist, a guitarist, a drummer, like multi-instrumental drummer. They had a xylophone player and a DJ and two MCs. And again, it was very jazz, little and funk influenced. And I don't remember how I got a hold of it at first, but it's one of those things once I heard it, it just like infected my brain. and I still listen to it all the time. Like not as much over the years, but at the time I was really into it, and I went to. They even did some shows I went to. Again, I think it was just hard to have like a full like band behind you. But the times they did, it was really cool because they would have like they had literally a xylophone solo to enter their song. I'll send you a link because once you hear, you're like, okay, that's pretty good. And they would have drum solos and stuff. But then they would have like DJ and hip hop and everything, and really good rappers. And yeah, I went to a bunch of their shows. I saw them open for like Gift of Gab and some other people around that time.
Nice.
Who I was more interested in them than the headliners. So their biggest album is called Break the Hold. So I'm gonna pick the song off the album Break the Hold. Is the name of the song, and again, that's the one with a really cool xylophone intro. So again, it's on Spotify, which is kind of mind-boggling. So someone owns the music and is putting it up for distribution in that way. So the song of the day is Break the Hold by Quiva, Quivah. All righty, moving on. So again, we're changing things up a little bit this episode. We're not going to do horror news. We already talked about our Patreons. We already did Dead of Ice. So we thought we'd end out tonight by talking about some of our favorite spooky stories. So me and Jody found some internet ones. Elizabeth, I think, has some personal ones she wants to share. So Jody, why don't you turn back down the lights, fire up your flashlight, and tell us some spooky tales.
All right. So while trying to find some stories, I went to the internet's repository of spooky stories, and that is the r/no sleep subreddit. Lots of good stories there. But I tried to find a couple that were interesting. This one is called My Son Asked Me to Check the Closet for Monsters, and I Didn't Need to. I recently went through a pretty nasty divorce, but I got the only thing that mattered out of it. Full custody of my 4-year-old son. Lost nearly everything else in the process, so we had to relocate to a new house with barely any luggage or furniture. Truly a fresh start. I heard him call for me during our first night at a new home. It was a little after midnight, I think. I went to check on him to see what was wrong and sat by his bedside. He was wide awake and asked me to check the closet for monsters, which wasn't surprising given the circumstances. He's still just a little kid. Even without taking into account all the crap he's been through thanks to my marriage, moving to an unfamiliar, barely furnished home must be a lot to take in for someone his age. And you know how they say your brain always stays half awake when you're sleeping in a new environment, right? That's all pretty much went through my mind in a flash as soon as my son spoke. It was no big deal. It was all normal, I thought. But something else almost immediately clicked inside my brain before I even got to look where my son had pointed while he made his innocent request. Something was wrong. I turned my head and looked, and it took everything I had in me not to give in to fear and terror, all for the sake of my son. When you become a parent, you have to protect your children no matter what, always putting yourself in harm's way, if necessary, and to spare them all kinds of things that might hurt them. That's why I didn't freak out. I couldn't. Not when we had barely started our new life. I had to protect him. And at that point in time, as I sat on his bed, I only knew one thing. We had to leave the room. We had to leave the house immediately. All right, champ, of course, I said, faking bravery. Then I made a request of my own as I lowered my voice and got close to him. Hey, how about you step outside for a minute? If there's a monster in here, I'll have to kick his butt all over your room. He chuckled and said, okay. I made sure to put some extra emphasis on the word butt because it's something that's always cracks him up when I say it. Fortunately, he got stuck on that, not the fact that I was indirectly admitting to the possibility of there being an actual monster. As soon as he left the room, my mind raced as it started to put together the best and most efficient route to take him out of the house while picking my car keys and phone on our way out. When I heard the closet door slowly creaking open behind me, I knew it was time to go. I jumped out of the bed, exited the room, and grabbed my son. We were out the door and inside the car and moving in under a minute. I told him I couldn't sleep, so we were going to get some ice cream to celebrate. He was taken aback and asked, celebrate what? To which I just replied, just the two of us together. I love you, buddy. It was by no means a lie, but I had to make sure he was all right and wouldn't think of anything else when we literally fled our new home. As I mentioned earlier, the house was a new environment for the two of us. I'd been there a couple times before, cleaned it all up by myself, and assembled what little furniture we had. So I knew for a fact what belonged where and what didn't. And I know his room didn't have a closet.
Dun dun dun.
Pretty freaky.
Oh, that's a pretty good story.
Elise, did you like that one?
Yeah.
Oh, this always get me.
Joey, do you have another one?
Yeah, I got one more. I keep moving my window with all my words in front of you guys, so I can't see any reactions. I don't know if this is going over well or not.
No, it's good. It's good.
Bro, I could do this all night. Like this is my favorite.
All right. This one is called, and if you've ever been on No Sleep, like they don't really have titles.
I can't go on there because I won't sleep. It's legit for me. Like I can't.
Okay, this one is called my husband brought home a fake daughter. So I guess I'm speaking as a wife this time. This is not my child. That was all I could think. Honey, said my husband, is everything all right? Who is this? I said, staring at a little girl I'd never seen before, standing in my house, dressed in my daughter's clothes. Where's Lisa? My husband gave me a worried look, and the girl who was not Lisa looked positively terrified. What do you mean? Said my husband. Are you feeling all right? Why was he evading my question? Why couldn't he just answer? I took a deep breath, tried to remain calm. I'll be all right, I said, as soon as you tell me where my daughter is. My husband frowned, and the little girl's eyes welled up with moisture. My husband placed a protective hand on her shoulder and leaned down to whisper in her ear. Go upstairs, honey, he said. Mommy's not feeling well. The girl wasted no time doing what he said. She clutched her school bucks to her chest and barreled past me, rushing up the stairs. I heard the door of my daughter's room slam. The look on my husband's face was a mixture of pity and restrained anger. You haven't been taking your medication, he said. Don't try to deny it. I can see it in your eyes. I waved my hand in a dismissive gesture. I don't need them. They make my mind all fuzzy. The anger on my husband's face became less restrained. Well-etched lines beneath his lips deepened. Do you remember what happened last time you said that? He asked. The suggestion was enough. A swarm of shattered and confused images flooded my mind like the wave of nausea that comes before vomit. My husband screaming, covered in blood. Look what you made me do, he was shrieking. Look what you made me do. I felt the floor tilt beneath me, and before I knew what had happened, I found myself falling backward into my husband's arms. Hot tears were streaming down my cheeks, and my body convulsed with violent sobs. My husband gently brushed my hair and whispered in my ear. Shh, he cooed. It's not real, honey. I promise it's not real. I silently nodded my assent. I let him carry me up to our bedroom and lay me gently down on the bed. He walked over to the dresser where I kept the cocktail of drugs that I took every day to maintain my sanity. I swallowed them gratefully. Soon my mind was going fuzzy. I could feel myself becoming a pliable zombie that could be told anything, made to do anything. Of course, I knew that it was wrong, that girl was not Liza. I knew it wasn't me who had been driven insane by our daughter's death, but my husband. I knew he had kidnapped that girl when she was a toddler and brainwashed her into believing she was Liza. But most importantly, I knew if I didn't take my pills, if I shattered his precariously built illusion, that he would kill the girl and start all over again, just like he did last time.
Dun, dun. Love it. But also, look what you made me. Is anyone else Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
Singing in my head. Yeah. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Good job, Jody.
These aren't necessarily the best ones on.
No, they're just so like you just.
But I found some
forever.
compact
Like,
ones. I had to find some
yeah.
short ones.
Well, I went even shorter. I went to the 2-sentence horror stories.
Oh, I love that too.
Yeah, me too.
I picked some out for us. Elise, you're not getting too scared, are you?
No.
You're gonna be able to sleep tonight? Okay, well, we'll see. We got some more for you. Okay. My sister says that mommy killed her. Mommy says I don't have a sister.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Very nice.
All right. There was a picture in my phone of me sleeping. I live alone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, here we go. I can't move, breathe, speak, or hear. And it's so dark all the time. If I knew it would be this lonely, I would have been cremated instead.
Ooh, very nice.
It's pretty serious.
All right. There is nothing like the laughter of a baby unless it's 1 a.m. and you're home alone.
And you know,
Mhm. Yeah.
or you're just trying to enjoy a horror movie and you're no longer a parent of a child that's a baby
Mhm.
and it just won't stop.
Man,
You're like,
there's nothing worse than watching Lake Mungo
yeah, I can't.
and your daughter walking out in the middle
Jeez.
of it. And like when she
Oh,
like sleepwalks, I was like, God damn it.
Okay, well, hang on. I do have one worse. I watched The Strangers for the first time,
Mhm.
and it's a terrifying movie. And we at the time we had some birds that had like gotten in through a hole in our house
Oh
and
my
were like
God.
in the wall. And so I watched The Strangers, and then like 2 a.m. the birds started banging on the inside of the wall,
Oh no.
like knocks, like
Then the birds were like, "Is Tamara home?"
like
You're like,
holy
I'm
crap.
done. I
I was
can't.
like, is someone knocking on the door? Because I'm about to die.
There we go. All right, I got one more.
No.
The funeral attendees never came out of the catacombs. Something or someone locked the crypt door from the inside.
Very nice.
Thought that was thematically appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
See,
And then,
and I'll let Elizabeth, guys. I don't want to
Mhm.
interrupt her, so I'm gonna say this real quick. One of my favorite things to do is like read creepy pastas on the internet. I really wanted to tell Candle Cove tonight. I
Oh
don't know if y'all.
man, look, I was just today talking about that with somebody
I
who was like, "That
love
freaked me out
Candle
so bad." And I'm
Cove.
like, watch it on site. Like, watch the.
Yeah,
Did you
it's,
watch the? It's yeah, it's good.
what's the show called? Channel Zero.
Channel Zero? Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, but Candle Cove is my favorite
Oh my
creepypasta, but
gosh,
it's
so
told as like an
good.
internet like forum, so it can't
Yes,
really
any of those
translate
that
well to
like,
this. But like,
if I'm 3 minutes in and I'm like, wait, is this real? Like, I don't.
yeah,
If
that's
every
exactly.
kid in this is like, there's also a stairway that goes to nowhere in my backyard. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, what? It just freaks me out. I just
Yeah.
don't. I don't know. I don't like it.
Good freaky stories.
Like it.
All right. Elizabeth, before we wrap up, do you have any creepy stories?
I will pick
Real
one.
or
I will pick one.
otherwise?
I have
Okay.
100. I will pick one. Okay, so I need to like have an elevator speech for this. When I was in 6th grade, 4 girls came over to my house and decided they were gonna have a seance because a kid at our school had died tragically 2 days
Mm.
before. And we were in the class with his younger sister. And so it was very like, we were getting like notes home at school, and our parents had to come to like an all school assembly. He died by suicide. It was very, very tragic. So I have a sleepover 2 days later, and my friends are just like, we're gonna contact him. It's fine. Don't worry. And I was raised Catholic, and like, no, there's absolutely no way you're bringing a Ouija board. Like, none of it. I'm not
No,
doing it.
I still wouldn't
No.
have a Ouija board in my
No,
house.
not doing it. But they were just like, but we are. It's cool. Just sit up here and watch a Full House by yourself. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So they go to my basement and do whatever they did, and then come back up, and I'm just like pissed the whole time. Like, Ginger, Becky, I thought we were friends. I'm like, what are you even doing in my basement? They're like, nothing happened. It was stupid. And then literally from the time they left my house until my parents sold that house, which has since been sold 7 times, like, it was Hell House LLC. Like, it was like furniture moved. You couldn't lock doors and keep them locked. They would unlock. Everything in our fridge would go bad. My parents found, okay, this is like the climax. This is it. I get a phone call one day at my waiting tables job where I'm like at a catfish restaurant, just like 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. And they're like, it's your mom. She sounds crazy. So I'm like, nothing new here. What's up, mom? And she's like, no, meet me at the Starbucks down the street right now. Like, leave your shit. And so I'm just like, take my apron off, and I'm like, I gotta go. I don't know. So I go to Starbucks. My mom is in her car bawling. I pull up and she's like, just get in. My mother does not smoke. I still did at the time. And she's like, give me a cigarette. And I was like, what is happening? Like, who died? And she's like, listen, look, I'm going to tell you what happened. And then you're literally never going to speak of it again. So here I am on a podcast telling you all.
Here you are recorded breaking that promise.
I just want it on record how bad a daughter I am. So she's like, yeah, they're trying to sell the house that was haunted that I grew up in. she was meeting the inspector there that afternoon. She got off work early, goes there. She got off a little extra early because they were trying to humanely catch a raccoon that had been in the crawl space in my house. So they had like a no kill trigger trap that was just like you just put like whatever on and then it just like shuts the door. I had like my parents had already told me like we're gonna go to Shelby Farms and just let him go and like he can go find his new cousins. This was a whole thing happening. I knew there was a raccoon. My mom goes home to check to make sure there's not just like a raccoon going crazy when they're gonna go down and be like, look, the crawl space fine. And she does find a raccoon. The trap had not been tripped at all. So the door was not closed. The peanut butter was still on the thing, the sensor, and a full grown male raccoon. My mom's in the medical industry. A full grown male raccoon was inside of the cage that was dissected from like sternum to groin and done in the like dissect, like it's like medical school accurate. Like, I don't know. She was using all the words. So I was just like, what? All of the major organs have been taken out of the body. There was no blood. And the small intestine had been wound in and out of like the metal caging.
What?
She's bawling, smoking frantically while she's like legit. I was like, my life is like a fucking David Lynch film. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening right now. Like, I don't know what to do with this information. And I was like, well, what did you do? And she's like, well, I had to tell your dad. And he wouldn't like speak to me basically the entire time we were even like dealing with it. Like, it was like, he just like went into action and was like, he's very super, like, I get it. Like, he probably wasn't trying to like write a dissertation about like what was happening, but they packed it up in their car in a garbage bag, went down to the Mississippi River, dumped it, part and parcel, like just was like done with it, sold the house to a very nice young 21-year-old nursing student whose husband wasn't going to be there for another year. They sold it 14 months later. It's been sold 5 times since.
Whew.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Moved
That
to
was-
Memphis. It's super fun.
Yeah. Wow. So I was expecting, moving
It's a-
furniture and
look,
stuff,
it's a-
but the dissected raccoon. Oh,
It packs a punch. Yeah, there's some, and that's just one of dozens. Like that house was. I drive by it sometimes just to be like, does it feel? Yes, it feels weird. Yes, I don't even like to be on the street in front of it.
That's wild. That is so wild.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that
Elizabeth
note-
wins.
Yeah. The truth is always stranger than fiction.
Truly, it's true.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode. Elise, Joy, did you have something?
Oh, I just wanted to tell all of our listeners, if you haven't been on our social media recently, we have revealed a picture that was drawn for us
Yes, thank you.
by Mike Vosberg, the guy who illustrated the cover
So cool.
every episode of Tales from the Crypt.
So
Like
cool.
when the Crypt Keeper opens up his book and he shows the cover, that was Mike, and he drew us a
That's so
special
cool.
Dads from the Crypt cover. If you're on the video, I've got it.
Oh
right
my
here.
God, you already got that printed.
I got it
that's
framed and
so
printed.
cool.
But
That's
isn't
so
that
cool.
awesome? It's
That's
so
rad
cool.
as shit, dude. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so for everyone that liked it, thank you. And so basically what happened was Al is working on the project, and he was telling me that he was working with Mike Vosberg to get some concept art created. And I said, oh, yeah. And also they did an interview with Mike Vosberg. I'm like, how much do you think he would charge if or would you think I could ask him to do something for us specifically? And he's like, well, just tell me what it is and we'll see what we can do. This was like in February. So like I kind of brainstormed a little bit, and I came up with the idea of the 3 of us standing over either a crib or a carriage, and then like monster arms. Originally I had like ideas of like arms holding like a baby diaper, a podcasting microphone, a baby bottle, kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I haven't heard from, I didn't mention it to Al very much, till now it's June or July, God. And then he's like, oh yeah, I got something for you. And then boom, there it is. It's like, gosh, it's amazing.
It's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
It's very
It's like we have been illustrated in EC Comics style by the guy who drew all those comic covers in the show.
Yeah. And,
I can't believe it exists.
Yeah, he came up with the dad slashed out to dads. That was all him.
Yeah, that was a pun that I'm horribly disturbed that 2 years into this we've never thought of.
Yeah, that's why they get paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
That's how puns work too. Like they just come to you and you're like, oh my gosh, like it's been there the whole
Mhm.
time.
All right. Now, Elise, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
I had
And
some fun.
do you have any I'm assuming you're the one who does the karate tournaments, right?
One of them.
One of them.
One of them. Cool. Do you have any big tournaments coming up we should root for you for?
I have one in Canada in October. So
Okay.
Sweet.
And Jody, is there a funding site for that or like the other ones or no?
Yeah, there is. We haven't actually put it out there yet, but GraysonandElise.com, GRACYN and ELYSE.com. There this year's worlds are happening in Canada, in what's the name of that place?
Calgary?
Calgary. Thank you. Yes, in Calgary. So they're going to Calgary this year. They went to Wales last year, and then Elise went with us to Austria the year before that to do karate tournaments. So
And are you like a world ranked or you're a world award winning?
I've got a few. I have a few first, a few seconds, and then a few thirds.
On a world level?
That's
Yeah,
so cool.
the
Amazing.
way the ranking works is a little like there's not like one governing body, but within the governing body that she's been competing in, she has won several medals at the world level.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Well, Saturn's next, so we'll get there.
Yeah.
All right. And Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
Guys, thank you so much for having me. You can find me pretty much everywhere at Final Girl Scout. Twitter, Instagram, Gmail, hit me up. I like pen pals.
That's a great handle. That's another one. I'm like, damn it. I wish someone thought about that.
Thanks. Yeah, I love it.
All right. Well, again, don't forget to send us a iTunes review and send it to dadsfromthecrypt.com to enter our contest for the Fright Rags gift card. Those are due by August the 4th. And then even if you don't win, you can still use the Dad's Crypt 10 coupon code for 10% off your order. We appreciate everyone for listening. We really appreciate if you give us a rating and review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify. Check out our YouTube for videos of these podcasts. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.